Hi, this is Steve with Thresher Media Group. Welcome to When You're Ready to Listen. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the truth about God, things you may not have understood, may not have been taught, or quite frankly, had a very hard time believing. And since our entire relationship with God rests on believing, it is important we learn how to separate the truth from the many lies and fictions that abound within the religion of Christianity. So when you're ready to listen, tune in and discover a pathway to freedom, encouragement, life, and hope. Just a quick reminder, I have published a book entitled Liberating the Book of Revelation, Returning to the Source of the Message. Liberating the Book of Revelation is intended to help us all know what the Spirit said and how He said it. This book is focused not so much on interpreting the Book of Revelation, that is what this podcast is for, but on accurately representing the Book of Revelation in the manner in which the Spirit originally spoke it to John. I encourage you to go to Amazon.com and you can find the book either under the title, Liberating the Book of Revelation, Returning to the Source of the Message, or by my name as the author, Stephen Villanueva. It's available in hardback, paperback, ebook format, and the Audible version was just recently released. So yay there. Let's go to episode 119, Revelation 14, verses 6 through 7. In our last podcast, we finished our discussion of the attributes of the 144,000, the two witnesses, all the bondservants of Jesus Christ who follow the Lamb wherever He goes, even to their volitional sacrifice, a sacrifice which leads to their being the first picked or the first offed to God and to the Lamb. They have a special role and a special relationship with God compared to all who came before them, for they were purchased with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. We also understand that this whole discussion of the 144,000 dealt with now and then. What is true today and every moment of now since the resurrection of Jesus, and then during the time of the tribulation. Now, let's continue. Mostly now, and some then. 3 angels, 1 message. Revelation 14, verse 6 through 13. And I saw another angel now choosing to be flying in mid-heaven, now having an eternal gospel to preach to those who are now choosing to be residing, or literally sitting, on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, now saying with a loud voice, you are commanded to be caused to fear God, and commanded to give Him glory, because the hour of His judgment has come, and commanded to worship Him who had been making the heaven and the earth and the sea and springs of waters. And another angel, a second one, followed now saying, fell, Babylon the Great, she who has made drink all the nations of the wine of the wrath of her immorality, or harlotry. Then another angel, a third one, followed them now saying with a loud voice, if anyone now worships the beast and his image, and now receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will in the future choose to drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is having been caused to be mixed in full strength in the cup of His furious wrath. And he will in the future be caused to be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment now goes up forever and ever. They now have no rest day and night, those who are now worshiping the beast in his image, and whoever now receives the mark of his name. Here now is the perseverance of the saints, who are now keeping the commandment of God and their faith in Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven now saying, you are commanded to write, blessed the dead, who are now dying in the Lord from now on. Yes, now says the Spirit, so that they may in the future be caused to rest from their labors, for their deeds now follow with them. There are 3 angels carrying 1 message said 3 different ways. A perfect message imaged by the number 3, which is code for perfection. It is a final plea to those who have made their home on the earth to give themselves to Jesus, not only because He is worthy, but because all they have hoped in is not only broken, but it also cannot save them, not even their religion. And for those who are not yet marked, if they succumb to the temptation to be marked, it will seal their eternal fate. It is mind-blowing that practically the entire message, told 3 different ways, is communicated in the present tense, applicable to the now. Yet the subject matter has always been taught as something that is exclusively applicable to the end times. For the most part, we have been lied to. We have been deceived. This message is for us in our now. Did you catch that there are only 2 uses of the future tense dealing with the then? According to the Spirit, what we can expect to occur in the future is, number 1, the final judgment of those who follow the beast and are now marked with his name, and number 2, the future rest that is to be experienced by those who follow the Lamb. That is the then, but everything else is applicable to our now. The angel who offers mercy from idolatry, Revelation 14, 6 through 7. And I saw another angel now choosing to be flying in mid-heaven, now having an eternal gospel to preach to those who are now choosing to be sitting on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, now saying with a loud voice, you are commanded to be caused to fear God and commanded to give him glory because the hour of his judgment has come, and commanded to worship him who had been making the heaven and the earth and the sea and springs of water. We may not be able to see it on the daily newscast, and most probably are unaware of this loud voice, but the angel is flying and saying these things even now. What he does is all rendered in the present tense, whereas what he says is rendered in the aorist tense. The point is that his eternal gospel is even now preached to all humanity. This is not just an end times reality. Rather, this is and has been going on. It also may not be immediately apparent, but the main thrust of this passage is all about a form of idolatry that just so happens to be rampant in our day and age, and increasingly on a global scale. And that is the worship of creation and not the Creator. Yeah, this is clearly nothing new, but it is escalating to alarming levels in so-called Christian populations all over the world. Hence the command to worship the Creator, the earth. The angel's target for this eternal gospel is those who have dug down into their soul and made the choice to now be dwelling, residing, or literally in the Greek, sitting on the earth. It's as if they have planted themselves in the earth. They are those who have actively chosen to be identified with this earth and have shown no interest in the things of heaven. Hence, the appeal to humanity is built upon the God of creation, the one who had been making the heavens and the earth and the sea and springs of water. The Spirit intentionally used earth and not the world. In the Codex, the world has a much broader application which extends to the systems, the pillars of belief, and the corresponding spiritual structures that comprise the world, which is the realm that is ruled by those who abide in darkness. In contrast, the earth is simply a reference to the earth. In his mercy, God does not leave these people to their own devices, but he reminds them that the earth, which they love so much, has been created, and therefore there must be a creator. He reaches out to them with this eternal gospel, and he makes no discrimination as to who gets to hear, as it goes out to every nation and tribe and language and people. There's no one left out. Mid-heaven. This angel is now choosing to be flying in mid-heaven. This would indicate that the angel is flying in our realm, in our atmosphere, in the skies above. Why did the Spirit include this little detail? It's an odd little detail. But we must remember, the Spirit is always intentional and precise. The point is that God, once again, purposely, intentionally invades our time and space with a message for all humanity. And though the angel is not physically seen flying in our atmosphere preaching, this is not a message for those in the unseen realms. Rather, this is a message specifically for those people who foolishly believe that the earth and this life is all that there is. This is a message for those who have lost sight of the supernatural and of the eternal, those who are so sure of their reality that they are no longer searching for answers or truth in the heavenlies. They have resigned themselves to that which is physical. Hence, they are just sitting on the earth. But if they would just look up, they just might be able to hear and receive the message. Heaven, earth, and the springs of water. Let's jump to the phrase at the end, and then we'll circle back to the rest of the text. Him who had been making the heaven and the earth and the sea and springs of water. At first glance, this might seem like a simple appeal connecting the Creator to creation. But it is curious that the Spirit limited his references to four things only: heaven and earth, the sea and springs of water. Why did he not mention the mountains and the trees, the clouds, the lakes, the rocks, or the fish, the animals, the plants, and veggies, and so on? Considering that the Spirit is always intentional and precise, this must mean more than it seems to let on. Idolatry. Sure enough, this phrase, the heaven and the earth and sea and springs of water, is connected to a warning or admonition found in the Codex. In fact, this warning comes from the very first of the 10 Commandments. Yes, the 10 Commandments. And being number one, it's a biggie. Exodus 20, 1 through 6. Then God spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, or any likeness of what is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth, which would be both the seas and the springs of water. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, Yahweh, your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. This is such an important concept that God repeated himself in the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 8 through 10. You shall not make for yourself an idol, or any likeness of what is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, Yahweh, your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, and on the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. It should be enough that God utters a command, especially the first of the big 10, that communicates something extremely personal to him. But for him to repeat it a second time, he intends that we do not miss his message. With the number 2, according to the code, being the number of witness and division, this repeated command creates a separation and a division between those who worship the creation and those who worship Yahweh. And this command is a witness that bears testimony to his warning. There is a creator and there is creation, and the two are never to be confused. We are not to give our worship to anything other than the creator. To the learned person, what we see happening today with the extreme concern for the earth and the various climate policies that seem to be changing faster than the weather might seem to be motivated simply by greed and politics. But such motivation has had a profound impact on the masses of humanity and has led to nothing short of fear and hysteria among those who are sitting on the earth and who, in effect, worship creation. But this is not new. The Spirit addressed this in the book of Romans. Romans chapter 1, verse 20 through 25. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power, and divine nature have been caused to now be clearly seen, caused to now being understood by the things made, so that they are now without excuse. For even though they were knowing God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks, but they were caused to become futile in their speculations, and their foolish heart was caused to be darkened. Now professing to now be wise, they were caused to become fools and exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God for an image in the form of corruptible man and of birds and four-footed animals and crawling creatures. Therefore God gave them over in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, so that their bodies would now be caused and now choose to be dishonored among them. For they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and were caused to have worshipped and served the creature rather than the creating one, who is now blessed forever. Amen. For so long, mankind has been violating the heart of God, the commandment of God, blatantly rejecting the truth. The consequences are that they have been caused to foolishly worship creation instead of the creating one. Again, this is nothing new. Had been making. You are commanded to be caused to fear God and commanded to give him glory because the hour of his judgment has come, and commanded to worship him who had been making the heavens and the earth and the sea and springs of water. The Spirit is clear that the role of our Creator with his creation was an active role, for he rendered what is normally translated as made in the aorist active participle. With the aorist tense and active voice, it states a simple fact. Creation was made by the Creator. But with the use of the participle, it communicates the circumstances under which this creative act took place, indicating that it was an active process, hence the infamous days of creation. So why was this important to emphasize? Let's remember that the Spirit is addressing the reason we should worship the Creator and not the creation. By communicating his active role, it communicates a reason to worship. God is not some hands-off, powerful being that just set things into motion, for instance, proverbially lighting the fuse that set off the Big Bang. Rather, he was and is intimately involved in his creation. He is intentional, and he is purposed, and his attributes of relationship are represented by his creation. His invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been caused to now be clearly seen, caused to now being understood by the things made. The Codex says that we, humanity, are the pinnacle of his creation. We are his workmanship, the product of his hands, literally something he personally knitted together. This alone should be reason to give him glory. A loud voice. What the angel is now saying, he says with a loud voice. He does not come to those sitting on the earth with whispers or a still small voice that they might just miss in all their daily routines. But he comes with a loud voice. So everyone will have heard, and everyone will have the conviction of the Spirit deep within their being. Obviously, this begs the question, how does this happen? There are not too many reports in the world news of an angel flying around the world preaching. However, there is a passage deep within the Codex, within the oldest book, that explains how this angel might get across the message to humanity. In the book of Job, it says that God speaks again and again, though people do not recognize it. He speaks, in this instance, through the agency of an angel, but Job says he speaks in dreams, in visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on people as they lie in beds. He opens their ears and seals their instruction, that they may turn from doing wrong and keep away from pride. He protects them from the grave, from crossing over the river of death. Moreover, creation itself is stunning. It too shouts with a loud voice the glories of the creating one. The Creator is very active, intentional, and precise in his communications to mankind, and it comes with a loud voice through many different avenues. This is one of the reasons that when it is all said and done, and people are standing before the great judgment seat of the Lord, no one will ever be able to say that they did not know, that they did not have its conviction deep in their soul. For everyone has heard, and everyone has been confronted with the reality that there is a Creator who had been making the heaven and the earth and the sea and the springs of water. Hence, every knee will bow before Christ, and every tongue will confess that he is Lord. All of humanity will all agree that they were given the opportunity to give him glory and to worship him, though truth be told, far too many refuse the invitation. This is why when it comes to the issue of eternal judgment, the whole pygmies in Africa argument is entirely without merit. For this angel with a loud voice has ensured that all men have heard. Besides, his invisible attribute, his eternal power and divine nature have now been caused to now be clearly seen, caused to now being understood by the things made. God is faithful, and he ensures that everyone is without excuse, that everyone has heard, that everyone gets to make the choice to either worship him or not. The church, well, let's say evangelical Christianity, tends to take this burden of evangelizing the world all on its own shoulders. Much to do has been made about our job as Christians to ensure that every person hears the gospel. But God always superabundantly provides, as he is the initiator and completer of all things. He is the Alpha and the Omega. That is how big, faithful, and merciful he is. He gets out the gospel regarding creation and the creating one, and it is an eternal message. The three-part command. You are commanded to be caused to fear God and commanded to give him glory because the hour of his judgment has come, and commanded to worship him who had been making the heavens and the earth and the sea and springs of water. Part 1. Fear God. The angel commands the people to let the fear of God come to them. It is rendered in the passive voice. Thus, it is an appeal to their willingness. If they are willing, he will bring to them the fear of God. They do not have to strive for it. They simply must be willing. This is a prime example of the interchange between grace and choice. If we are willing to choose to let him, God will do the work and he will bring to our hearts the fear or the honor of God. We just need to be willing. That is our part. The rest is his. The fear of God. When you read or hear the words, the fear of God, what do you think about? Do you just read over it as words that are so familiar within the Christian nomenclature? Or does it cause you to pause to consider what the Spirit is communicating? The Greek word translated as fear, phobio, is where we get our English word phobia. This word can be understood in a couple of ways. On the one hand, it does mean to be alarmed, to be frightened, to be scared. But on the other hand, it also means to be in awe or to revere. Given the context that the hour of his judgment has come, both are viable responses to his command. God wants us to be willing to let him cause us to have this reaction, one way or the other. If he causes us to fear him and his hour of judgment, if we come to understand that God is about to cleanse the world of its wickedness and shake everything in creation, we just might stop worshiping the creation and focus our attention on the Creator, the one who is in control of it all. For if we do, if we focus on the Creator, the inevitable result will be awe and reverence. There are just no two ways about it. Part 2, give him glory. He also commands them to give him glory. Now, unlike the command to be caused to fear God, this command is not rendered in the passive voice, but in the active voice. Thus, if we are willing to let him cause us to fear God, the somewhat natural response to our act of our will is to give him glory. It's not so much a choice in response to the command, the middle voice is not used, but an innate act that results from the fear of God entering our hearts. Going back to the passage in Romans 1, for even though they were knowing God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks. Perhaps giving glory can be as simple as honoring him as the creating one and giving him thanks for all his provision that comes to us from his creation. Part 3, worship him. Next, he commands them to worship him. And this command stands in stark contrast to the implication that those who are now choosing to be sitting on the earth are in effect worshiping the earth, worshiping creation. Once again, this command is rendered in the active voice, indicating that it is something that is done. Again, somewhat of an innate act that results from the fear of God entering our hearts. Now, although humanity is commanded to give glory and to worship him, these are not self-centered commands. God does not need worship from anyone. He is complete. Rather, they are tools which he provides, through which we can lower our defenses and let God's Spirit begin to work in our lives. They are tools to help us humble ourselves and realize that no matter how hard we try, we will never be God. For there is only one God, and he is the creator of all things in heaven and on earth. They are tools to induce us to be willing. Part of our design as humans, which brings us deep fulfillment, is that God created us to be worshipers and to give glory. However, far too often we have turned that toward aspects of our humanity, and we honor great people for all the greatness they have done, beautiful people for sharing their beauty with us, and talented people for performing for us. And that same passion to worship, we tend to worship the earth for all its provision and protection, and the creation for all its wonder. Yet God is saying, just take an honest look around you, and you could easily discern not just my greatness, but my beauty, and that I am. If you would simply acknowledge that it all comes from my hand, I will start to give you more and more and more understanding, more wisdom, and more knowledge. For whoever now has, even more shall they in the future be caused to be given, and he will in the future be caused to have an abundance. But whoever does not now have, even what he has, shall in the future be caused to be taken away from him. In the book of Acts, we are given a story where Peter and John were arrested by the religious leaders and thrown in prison. They were treated harshly, scolded, and threatened, but eventually they were released. What is fascinating is how their friends reacted when Peter and John reported all that the chief priests and the elders said to them. Acts chapter 4, verses 23 through 25. And when they had caused to being released, they went to their own companions and reported all that the chief priests and the elders had said to them. And when hearing this, they lifted their voices to God with one accord and said, O Lord, it is you who is making the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. Clearly, their companions had been willing to let the Holy Spirit cause them to fear God, and their innate reaction to the news that they heard was a spontaneous act of worship. And interestingly, but not surprisingly, they glorified God, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. This is essentially what God is seeking from those who are now choosing to be sitting on the earth. He wants them to turn their attention to Him, to understand that He is the creating one, that He alone is the source of their blessing. And He wants it to happen before it's too late, before the hour of judgment shuts the door on their opportunity, the eternal gospel. And I saw another angel now choosing to be flying in mid-heaven, now having an eternal gospel to preach to those who are now choosing to be sitting on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. What is this eternal gospel? The Greek word translated as gospel simply means a good message. This angel is preaching an everlasting good message. When most Christians hear the word gospel, they think of the good news about Christ, his death and resurrection, etc. But there are clearly other applications to the word gospel. The good message which this angel wants the people of the world to realize is that God has made it easy for them to choose to be willing to believe. Again, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been caused to now be clearly seen, caused to now being understood by the things made. Thus, if anyone simply and honestly looked around at earth, at the heavens, and the ocean and springs, it would be obvious that there is a creator. And not just an impersonal creator, but a creator who is purposeful, intentional, creative, marvelous, intriguing, fascinating, one who has an enormous sense of humor. For instance, have you ever thought of the creator's fondness for grossing us out with things like cockroaches, ticks, fleas, and creepy crawlers, or scaring us with spiders, fungus, vomit, and so on? He is clearly a creator who is very, very personal and having a somewhat twisted sense of humor. One must intentionally harden their hearts, suppress the truth in unrighteousness, and deny their creator to believe in the random existence of life. And the more we learn about the micro world at the particle level, the more these truths are even more undeniable. The order, or said another way, the digital programming of all things is unfathomable. And the beauty and the synchronicity of all things makes this truth far too obvious. Again, one must intentionally harden their hearts to deny that there is a creator and that he is intimate with his creation. The amazing thing, or the good message, is that God is not asking much from humanity. He has made his existence so obvious to them that he just wants them to be willing to let the Spirit of God cause them to fear God, to revere him because he is the creating one, to simply thank him or give him glory for all the amazing provision he has brought to them. I mean, this is amazing. If they were to just thank him for his provision, for the beauty of creation, they would provide just enough room for the Spirit of God to work in their soul and to bring them the fear of the Lord. Just a thank you, just an appreciation, just an acknowledgement would create enough of a crack in their hardened unbelief that the Spirit of God will then get to work and begin to reveal to them the beginning steps of understanding, the beginning of wisdom, and why they should hate all things that are not of God. He will show them that they were created to worship God and that they will find their greatest fulfillment, joy, and satisfaction in such worship. After all, it's a part of the fundamental design of all humanity. It's programmed into our DNA. Hour of judgment. The impetus to these three commands is because the hour of judgment has come. Being rendered in the past tense, this speaks less about the events that occur with the blowing of the seventh trumpet as it does about the past 2,000 years. The word translated judgment makes us naturally think of the end times events and the final day of judgment. But that is not what is being addressed. In the Greek, it literally says, the hour of his decision has come. Again, rendered in the past tense. It has come. We are not waiting for it. And as for the hour, the Spirit is not talking about a literal 60 minutes, but about an epoch of time. It's a metaphor. Said another way, when Jesus came to our world as a man, this initiated the time for every nation, tribe, and tongue and people to decide what to do with him. It's time for each person to make a decision or a judgment about him. Jesus stated that judgment, or literally decision, has now come upon the world. The epoch of time has arrived. He also said that if he might be caused to be lifted from the earth, as in being crucified, that he will in the future draw all men unto him. Now, this does not mean that all men will make the choice to be willing to let the fear of God into their souls, nor will all men glorify or worship him. Rather, in the proverbial hour, they will all be drawn to him, or in effect, be confronted with a decision, a judgment that must be made about him, for the hour of his decision has now come. And since he has made it very simple for each person to understand the eternal good news, each person at a minimum must decide if they will honor him as the creating one who has been making the heaven and the earth and the sea and the springs of water. The decision. Jesus explained the dynamic of his hour of decision as follows. John chapter 3, verses 19 through 21. This is now the decision, that the light has come into the world, and men love the darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil. For everyone who is now doing evil now hates the light, and does not choose to come to the light for fear that his deeds will be caused to be exposed. But he who is now practicing the truth chooses to now come to the light, so that his deeds may be caused to manifest, that in God they now are having been caused to being made. John 8:12. As long as I am now in the world, I now am the light of the world. John 9:5. I now am the light of the world. He who is now following me shall not walk in darkness, but in the future will have the light of life. John 1:4. In him was life, and the life was, or has always been, the light of men. And the eternal gospel, the eternal news, has been revealed to all of mankind. God has not kept it hidden. That is the reason that the hour of his decision has come to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. Again, he makes this very clear. Everyone has been exposed to the light. In fact, his life is the light of mankind, the spark that keeps us all alive. Therefore, everyone must decide what to do with the light. John 1 through 13. In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God chose to have created everything through him, and nothing was chosen to be created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light now shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. There chose to have been a man caused to being sent from God, whose name John, to tell about the light so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who now gives light to everyone, now choosing to be coming into the world. He came into the very world he chose to have created, but the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. But to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to choose to become children of God, to them that are now believing on his name. Without exception, the light has been brought to everyone, but not everyone has made the decision to come to the light that leads to life. Thus, he pleads with everyone, while you now have the light, you are commanded to now believe in the light, so that you might choose to become sons of light. With the events surrounding the seventh trumpet, the time of total darkness is about to come, a time without light. Once the two candlesticks, the two witnesses, which bear the light, are removed from the earth at the time of the rapture, then comes this time of utter darkness, a day without hope. Thus, this angel brings a message of unbelievable mercy and grace to the peoples who have otherwise pushed God completely out of their lives. It's a message this angel delivers now and every moment of now throughout the past 2,000 years. And he will continue to deliver this message right up to the time that it's too late to worship God and to give him glory. Let's stop here, and in our next podcast, we will pick up with the second of three angels who, in effect, deliver one message. I'm glad you tuned in and have been ready to listen. To get a free download of the full written transcript with all the scripture references footnoted, please go to threshermediagroup.com. That is THRESHER mediagroup.com. This is Steve with Thresher Media Group. When you're ready to listen, tune in.